when we add the security to the database, which we're doing now, configuration updated, we now log off, we disconnect, and we connect again. This time it says the security in place, so immediately I'm being asked for a username and password. So I type in the password, username, password, and this is the magical admin username and password that I just pointed you to in the XML file. That is there so that you can actually log back in. Because if you change the security and don't give yourself any users you can log in with, you're a bit stuck. So we provide this magical admin user that once you've got your other users set up in the database, you can remove. So now we'll go back to the configure security, and we now see a new tab here called user management. And here, in this tab you can actually define your users and control what they can do. Initially we need to create the database tables because they don't exist yet. They've been created, and now you can add a user. So we'll add a user called chemist, give them a password, and you can control what they can do. Role user basically gives you read-only access to the database. Role edit data lets you edit existing values in the database and, let's say, add and delete rows to the database. But it doesn't let you perform what from the database side sense would be DDL operations. So you can't add and delete columns, you can't add and delete tables and things like that. So you can't change the structure of the database, but you can edit the data that is already in the tables. Role edit schema lets you create tables, delete tables, and those sorts of things. So that lets you change the structure of your database. And role admin lets you perform administrative tasks such as changing the security and things like that. So we're going to give the chemist read-only, read-write, and edit the schema access. And we'll create another user called biologist. And we're just going to give the biologist, so I'm not sure I typed that right. Let's try again. We're just going to give the biologist read-only access. And now we finish. And now with those users we can disconnect and we can log back in now as one of those users. So let's log in as biologist. And the biologist sees the same set of tables and things that we saw before. The biologist is able to create grid views and form views of their own and work with them. But what they're not able to do is edit data that's in the database. So what they've got is a completely read-only view of the database. So if I right-click on this value and try to edit it, it won't let me because editing is disabled. Also, you'll see that the add row and the delete row actions here in the toolbar are disabled. So the poor biologist has this completely locked down. So they can view data, they can run queries, but they can't edit anything. Alternatively, if we disconnect and now connect again, this time we'll connect as chemist. The chemist now has admin privileges, well not admin privileges, but schema edit privileges. So he sees this prompt as to whether they want to connect in single user mode or multi-user mode. We'll connect in multi-user mode this time because we're not going to make any changes to the tables, but we still have the ability to edit data. So if we can now go back to the same table, you'll see that the chemist can edit data, whereas the biologist couldn't. The chemist can also add new rows. The chemist can delete rows. Okay, so that's broadly it for the database-based security. I can't configure security even as chemist because I don't have admin role. So what I need to do is sorry, I need to disconnect. I need to reconnect, this time back as admin. And now I can go back and configure the security, and I could go back and edit the configuration. For the database-based security, you typically don't actually need to edit much. The one thing you might want to do, though, is remove this magical admin user once you have a user that is configured that has full access rights, because it is potentially a security hole. So once you've got a user with the right access rights, you should probably sensibly remove this, and you just got to remove the appropriate configuration, remove this temp authentication provider, which will prevent this sort of backdoor for the admin, and that means your database is now a lot more secure. So let's look at what other security templates we provide. We've seen so far the default, which is the anonymous one. We were just looking at the one where the usernames and passwords were stored in the database itself. These next two are really very similar. They use an LDAP server for your usernames and passwords. So this would be an LDAP server that's running on your network somewhere, and whenever InstantJChem needs to authenticate a user, it will call out to the LDAP server and verify the username and password in the server, in the LDAP server, and you can also retrieve roles and map those to the InstantJChem roles as well. This one connects to a standard LDAP server. This one is configured for a Microsoft Active Directory server that is very similar, but it's Microsoft's slightly bizarre way of doing LDAP. So we choose one of these, set the template, and this time you do actually need to make a bit of configuration, because obviously we need to know things like where the LDAP server is. So there's a bit of configuration you have to do in this template. For instance, here is the URL of the LDAP server, and obviously you'd need to point that to the particular LDAP server that you want to use, and there'll be things like passwords and things that would be specific to your particular environment. So there's a little bit of configuration you need to do, and it also obviously depends a bit on the configuration of your LDAP server, on how it's organized. But the real advantage of using either the LDAP or the Active Directory authentication is that your security is defined in just a single place. So if you use the same security settings for multiple InstantJChem databases, they're all using the same settings, and they're all hitting the same LDAP server, and so you've got the same username, same password information for all your different databases. Finally, the last one is just a very simple basic text file based one. If you want really just to test out security, this is useful, but it's not really for use in a real world scenario. This little section here just defines your users. So here we've got 4 users set up: admin, owner, editor, and user, and passwords for each of those, and the roles that are assigned to them. So if you just want to test security, then this template where the users and passwords and roles are defined within the template itself is suitable, but it's not really supposed to be used in a real world scenario. So that gives you an overview of the different security options. We'll leave this as it is, which is using the database-based security.